Good morning. I am your coffee break. I think I have to begin with this story because it's very relevant. Maybe it's a story others have heard before. But one day, a little boy went to his dad and asked him, "Dad, what is a miracle?" And the father told the boy this. He said, "Okay, you want to know what a miracle is? Turn around." And as soon as the boy turned around, the father gave him a very strong kick in the butt. The boy, of course, flew across the room. And he stood up, massaging his aching back, and the father said, "Did you feel that, boy?" "Yes, Dad, I felt it." "Well, it would have been a miracle if you hadn't." That story has actually a lot of similarity between my experience in government and what I'm going through today, because I feel the pain, and therefore no miracles have actually happened yet. The numbers you're going to see are hard-won and hard-fought. And that's because they are predicated on a national tourism development plan that has been gone through over and over again, and is still very much in the works. But of course, let's start with the good news so that we are able to ease our pain. On the screen, you have a growing list, and I literally mean a growing list of the things we were never recognized for. Top 12 hottest destinations for 2013. One of the 15 hottest travel destinations for 2013. One of the 10 best regions for travel. Lonely Planet. By the way, Lonely Planet never, my beef, even as a civilian, was Lonely Planet never used to pay attention to the Philippines. It does now. And very recently, to add to this list, TripAdvisor, which is the world's largest online tourist assessment thing, actually has come out with a 2013 list that lists Boracay as the #1 Asian beach. In fact, in the top 10, there are 3 Philippine beaches listed. The president looked at this list and asked me, "Mon, how much of this is because we're a rather substantial advertiser now?" I said, "It's actually a combination of both. You don't get on the radar unless you dress up for the party." Our international visitor arrivals for 2012 looked something like this. We exceeded 1 million Korean tourist arrivals and have ended the year with roughly about 4.3 million tourists. It is a new high for the Philippines when you consider that 98% of all travel to the Philippines arrives by air. We are not the beneficiary of land crossings. When you say 4.3 million tourists, you actually mean these are the guys who've been crowding our airports. And we are on track, therefore, for 5.5 million this year. International visitor receipts, we're looking at numbers that go roughly this way. The average daily expenditure is at now over $890. Length of stay, 9 days. By the way, the length of stay is, again, the Philippines is considered one of the a kind of poster child for the UNWTO, because the Philippines, like Singapore, does not count you as a tourist unless you account for at least one room night in the Philippines. We're very strict about that. So when we say 4.3 million tourists, they were actually here for at least a room night. Domestic travelers, this is the even better news, which is not often highlighted. We have actually exceeded the 35.5 million target for 2016 as early as 2011, where we had 37.5 million travelers. A traveler is one trip. So theoretically, you're talking about, if you're saying 40 million in 2012, that's actually 80 million trips. Roughly about 80% of that would have been for tourism. So the domestic tourism picture is actually the bedrock of Philippine tourism. Room capacity. This is where it gets exciting. We have a number of rooms coming out of the chute at roughly almost 6,900 rooms by, I would say, about by the end of 2013. And you can see on the screen those establishments that will be producing them. I have a spotty picture of room capacity depending on the area. Air seats. Again, if I may go back a slide, just a little instruction on tourism. There are always two kinds of demand that we're watching. There is the created demand and what we call the unreleased demand. Our ability to create demand is now no longer in question. We are, as the lists imply, a very highly desired destination. The game is now a game of creating capacity or releasing the demand. Notice if you look closely 2 slides back, we apparently had strong latent demand for the Philippines in Malaysia. All that happened was we added flights to Malaysia, and Malaysia leaped forward by 28% in 4 months. We have a lot of that in the Philippines. And the game between now and 2016 is to build the capacity to release that demand. The demand creation, as I said earlier, is the easiest part of our job. One of the concepts that releases demand are our air seat agreements. Notice marked in green, we are pretty close to, and in fact in the process of renegotiating air seat agreements with Korea because we've both hit the ceiling. We are now at 90% of the agreement, so we have to come to a new agreement to release even more demand for the Philippines. That is also true for Hong Kong, in spite of what some people may have been reading in the newspapers. And as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia. Our accomplishments to date: first, we have to improve market access, connectivity, and destination infrastructure. The good news is that there is now a convergence budget. For the first time in Philippine history, the DPWH, working very closely with the Department of Tourism, has a separate budget for infrastructure. The money cannot be used for anything else except tourism-related infrastructure. The budget for 2013 is 12 billion pesos. The second is develop and market competitive products and destinations. Without going into great detail, As we speak, we are developing what we call the perfect visit to Manila. What does that mean? We are creating a literal track coming out of the airplane, through the tube, through the driveway, etc., to the hotel. The shopping places, the tourist destinations, identifying the facilities, the infrastructure in very precise detail of what we will eventually call the ideal visit to Manila. There will be two ideal visits that we will eventually identify. Ideal visit A, which includes a trip out of Manila to a near daytime destination, and B, one that is strictly within what we call the mega Manila area. Actual infrastructure money will be spent behind the precise itinerary, and we will pass it on to the private sector as soon as we have the specific plan so that they can make their inputs. As a matter of course, we are organizing more FAM tours to the Philippines than ever in history. Why? The world has not been updated about what's gone on in the Philippines for quite some time. I was in a meeting with some people the other day who were speechless when they entered my office because they never dreamed we had a Makati. The last time these people were in Manila was in 1979. There was Makati then. I don't know where they were taken. But anyway, Strategic Direction 3, Governance and Human Resources. I have always said tourism is only as strong as the local government unit behind it. We are most successful in areas where the LGU is most involved. There is no two ways about it. You can count with your fingers where the tourism business is strongest, and in every instance, it is the activism of the local government unit that accounts for the success. Also, there are very strong biodiversity partnership programs. Why is this? The Philippines, in spite, again, of all the naysaying, is probably one of the most ecologically aware countries in the world. We account for less than 0.02% of the pollution in the world, but we are in the top 10 of the victims of climate change. We live and breathe that risk every day. And if you go out of Manila, you will actually find that a lot of Filipinos are very aware of this danger and, in fact, have a natural gift for preserving the environment. I always tell my foreigner friends, we've been recycling plastic since plastic was invented. And then there are agritourism programs. The Department of Tourism is in a convergence project with the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the DTI, and some members of the Senate, in fact, to put together very specific agritourism programs that involves visits to farms, to craft centers, to fish exchanges. The projects will be launched, if I may venture a guess, in less than 30 days in the presence of the President of the Philippines. And then, of course, the stickiest problem of all, airports and seaports. A problem we never used to have. Okay? I always tell people when they ask me, my job is to fill up the airports. It's somebody else's job to make the airports spacious. But this this game or this pressure game will continue. For as long as you're seeing some congestion in our airports, it will drive the expansion of the network. And by the end of 2016, we hope to have, this surprised a lot of people before, we hope to have at least 11 airports ready for international arrivals of varying magnitude. Okay. 2013, like I said, is 5.5 million. And the indicators would be the length of stay will remain more or less constant. Average daily expenditure will rise from 2013 of nearly 5,000 US dollars to 6,000 US dollars. The other way to look at this, which I've mentioned before, is the implication of 10 million arrivals is that tourism will then account for over 18% of all employment in the Philippines by the year 2016. When I joined government, the original target was at 6.3 million, and the President asked me, Mon, why did you raise it to 10? I said, sir, if you look at the competitive figures, and by the way, this is the paradigm shift we have in tourism. We are determined to be more competitive. The original 6.3 million target by 2016 would have left us at 5th place still, behind Vietnam. Unacceptable. Unacceptable because it's going to cost us twice the money to gain market share onward. So at 10 million, we actually have a shot at being, as far as air arrivals are concerned, being in the top 3 in Southeast Asia. The economic impact projection, therefore, like I said, is 18% of national employment and about 8.7% of GDP, securely a key government industry. We're looking at total visitor receipts in pesos of over 2.3 trillion pesos a year. Thank you very much, and I hope to be able to go to the panel.